what actually has stopped you from doing this now? Today we're going to review the Protected Retirement Income and Planning Study 2025 edition. It was commissioned by the Alliance for Lifetime Income by LIMRA. As I stated, I'm an education fellow there. So let's just move straight to it here because I thought that it had some interesting observations, but then it also shows you that it's very easy to gloss over things. Let's just talk about it here. It won't take too long. And by the way, before I get started, be sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully you get something from today. I'm sure that someone you know could. Hold on. Okay. So here it is. Just 28% of consumers have talked about with a financial professional about the impact of caregiving for a family member or on their retirement plan. So none of these is that surprising, meaning the information from the slide itself. But you can easily see it. It is one of the reasons that there is gender inequality. I didn't say that entirely that justifies the wage gap between genders. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that it's no doubt clear, and we don't need studies for some of this stuff, right? Which is somebody from the extended family gets ill, needs some quarterback in order to coordinate the new life when somebody cannot take care of him or herself. Who is that responsible adult female? I can make 1,000 videos. I could be behind 1,000 pulpits. I'm not going to be able to change that. You know it. I know it. Lots of articles, etc. Part of the reason that we don't have equal preparedness, financial preparedness, retirement preparedness between genders has everything to do with this. Okay. The stack of papers ends up on the desk in front of the responsible adult female. So as a result, the issue is that, the ripple effects are many. One of them, of course, is the fact that, okay, I'm responsible adult female, I'm go-getter, I'm type A. Everything grinds to a halt immediately. Gets put on hold. Your career trajectory put on hold. And it's not only that, but you're using not only your time, but you're also using money. Maybe you're contributing from yourself and your own savings. There will be countless number of examples of this. You'll know someone, I promise you there. This is not surprising, right? So but the question is whether or not you've now planned around, address this new reality. And I would highly encourage that people do that, or at least understand that this is now a new reality and a new thought that is very much in order. Okay, it makes complete sense. I tell people, when do you look at your plan at the minimum? At the minimum, when you have some kind of lifestyle changing event. You've changed jobs. You've quit your job. You've become unemployed, whether that be on a voluntary basis or an involuntary basis. At that point, some shock comes to the system. All the numbers get shocked. All of the timeline gets shocked. Or not. I didn't say it's not that it's always negative. Maybe you got a huge pay raise. Maybe somebody doubled your pay for going to a competitor. That all can be true. What I'm just saying, the door swings both ways, and anytime the door swings in an exaggerated way, it's time to check. Here says 28% check. That doesn't sound like the 100% that I would have suggested. Okay. That also said, not that surprising, right? You're busy, you've got other things on your mind, etc. I can get it. What is also not surprising to me is this. So we go to this other slide here and says 69% of Gen Xers, if given a $100,000 inheritance, would select an annuity over investing that money into the stock market. Now, yeah, I would say a couple of things. Number one, I think that the Alliance for Lifetime Income, including many videos sitting here on Jay's Corner, are talking about the function of a layer of guaranteed income that would sit above Social Security. We're not going to resolve debates about Social Security other than, you know, people who think it's a scam. I could have done better by investing in the market. I reject all of that, right? None of that is true. That presumed so many different things. It's not even funny. So, in order to look backwards and say, okay, this would have definitely happened, I would completely disagree with that. Okay. That said, we are here. What I'm saying is, okay, now $100,000 plops into your hands. And now of this, 69% would consider an annuity instead of investing in the stock market. So, two big things. Number one, the world of financial guidance isn't set up to do this, right? In other words, what normally would happen here? I got a windfall of $100,000. You go to Acme Wealth Management. They start saying, okay, I get $1,000 a year raise, right? Because in it goes to swim inside a brokerage account, to swim inside inherited IRA, whatever it would be, right? In this $100,000 inheritance. Yes, there are a bunch of complicated rules depending on the nature of it. Somebody's, in theory, writing a second book about it. Don't ask. Anyway, let's go to this, though. That kind of is self-evident, right? Meaning that the Acme Wealth Management, the brokerage business, is not set up to consider allocating this unless asked in isolation, right? It's just not. It has to come from the consumer. I talked with the CEO of Water Lily. I'm going to talk to Chris High, one of the people from the Alliance from Lifetime Income who runs his own firm. And the issue is that financial markets information and the ancillary advice that you see in hot takes on CNBC, articles in Barron's, Investment Business Daily, every location is about, is AMD the new NVIDIA? Very topical, right? In other words, they're talking about issue selection, stock selection. Do I buy mortgage bonds? Do I buy, corporate bonds? Do I buy government bonds? That is understandable, but it is so dominant in terms of the information you get. Even this slide here glosses over something, which is, if you have a $100,000 inheritance, wouldn't annuities over investing that money in the stock market now? Now, I didn't run this study. What ends up happening is this was a commissioned study using Connex, which is reputable, no question. In fact, we use it for pricing surveys when it comes to annuity products. The second question, though, the follow-up question I would have asked here isn't part of the slides. The second question I would have asked is, if this is the case that 70% of Gen Xers would have allocated an extra $100,000 into an annuity, why aren't they doing it today? Right? Who said that this was mutually exclusive? Even this slide gives you that implication. As if it's mutually exclusive, that you had to leave your existing portfolio in its current state as it sits today. Today is October 7th, is the day that I'm recording. Right? What's to stop you from today to thinking through, hey, maybe I should do this now? So $100,000, it's just an example. What I would have reframed this to be is, instead of $100,000, what I would have reframed it to be is like, let's say I got a 10% increase in my overall portfolio size. We're going to ignore differences across the different taxation buckets. I get all of that. Again, second book about dealing with that. Yes, it has to be handled in, with care. We are talking about the general principle right now. Meaning that if you're given a $100,000 inheritance, let's just instead say it. Let's say you had an increase of 10% of your portfolio today. Why is it not the same? Why wasn't the question asked in that way? Because for me, what the point is here, and I'm going to go to this extra tab. Now, it's been some time since I've shown you this tab. Created videos under live streams. And the issue is this. When we are thinking about a financial plan as a whole, for the entire household, all at the same time, I'm thinking about the risk. What risk is the household taking as an entire entity, right? So now what I'm saying is the following. I meet or talk with a family. I'm like, okay, is there anywhere where you can tell me where you win and when you lose and how much? The answer, like 100% of the time, for all intents and purposes, is they can't tell me. You've got one account over here. You've got a spouse over there. Each have had 3 different employers. Now you've got 6 accounts. You've got a taxable account. That's a 7th account, right? Maybe you had Roth IRAs for yourself. Maybe inside of your plans, inside of your 401k, you had a Roth option. So now you're talking about what, 10 accounts? My point here is when you run it in that way, you are inherently in the sludge of an inland lake, right? In other words, one item over here is negating the other item over here. And maybe you're doing that intentionally. Maybe you're doing it because you don't have the information consolidated in a spot. You can guess what my bias is going to be. My thought is having 10 children running around rampant, running around doing their own thing doesn't do you any good, because you know that this is going on, and therefore you are uncertain about the coordinated move if S&P 500 goes up by 10%. Right? In other words, why instead is this portfolio not all of these? And I'm doing this on the fly, so now you'll excuse me, right? I'm just creating this on the fly, right? In which case, what you would have is something that looks like this, and then have $100,000 here. Let's make all of these dollars. Right now your pie looks slightly different. And this is now the new total. Let's please not do it that way. Trying to do so in the interest of speed. Right, so now we've got this, where this is the bond, and just go like divided by this. And now this is the new allocated pie. My point here, and for those people who can understand what I've just done, right? I have just now changed the pie. Right? Because it's very strange to me. We get this hypothetical that we have taken the $100,000, bumped the portfolio, and then it would have sat and looked like in this ratio. That's what it would have been. My question is what actually has stopped you from doing this now? I'm going to tell you, nothing has. Nothing has stopped you, except a couple of things. Number one, You're not organized here, right? This wasn't in a list of all of the different accounts. I've just color coded as if there are only 3 accounts, right? There's nothing to say that, oh, wait, these 3 are in the, and I'm just making it up, of course, right? Meaning that this 3, this is not a real, portfolio, blah, blah, blah. And so now you can see I've just color coded as if each one represented company, employer one's 401k, employer two's 401k, employer three's 401k, and on it goes. What ends up happening is you just end up getting a sum of total balances and therefore also some kind of risk measurement, which has to do with this consolidated pie. I've now shown this to you in this way. And so as complimentary as I am to pointing this finding out, for me, for us here on Jay's Corner, the issue here is that even this isn't complete, because there's this extra set of questions here about, well, like I said, what has stopped you from doing this today? We didn't have the information in the correct organized fashion. And we don't have a guidance industry that is inherently interested in this. This ultimately has to come to the from the consumer. I'm convinced of this. I am very, very convinced of it. You see this book here underneath the Jay's Corner logo, right? I wrote this book because I know this is an issue. You know this is an issue in an everyday case, right? For example, like I said, during this situation, family member gets sick inside of this stack of work, right? Of administration that you now are the proud owner of, whether or not, that was voluntarily or involuntarily given to you. You have this new language. New language sits in this book. What I'm saying is that the shepherds of this, the industry that shepherds this, isn't inherently built to give you the information on the stack. And in the Medicare place, healthcare cost planning, it's the top layer, right? Which, it's kind of bass backwards for me, right? And today, that's my takeaway for you, which is you can see even here, best of class, that even here, the question that people would rightfully ask, the answer isn't here, because I just gave it to you, which is, hey, why aren't we here now? If we were going to be here then, under this circumstance, well, depending on your market holdings, et cetera, maybe you just got this bump as a result of market move. And now you could be to here today. That's it for today. Please like, subscribe. Hopefully you've got something from today. Lots of videos on this channel. We've got, like I said, interviews with actual experts. We are trying to go many layers deep, but still trying to have it in language that everyday people can understand. Thanks.